This week on QDL, we talk with Lisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy, about politics in the workplace. Is it possible to have water cooler chats about hot topic issues that are suitable for the workplace? Well, find out in 18 seconds. Welcome back to QDL. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. Today's QDL is brought to you by QMark, manufacturers of styli and accessories for the metrology machine tool industries. QMark, whose motto is same day styli. Well, oh boy, you're chatting with your coworkers during a break or maybe even while working next to them as you do your job, and some hot button topic comes up. It could be political, particularly nowadays, or it could be some hot social issue. It could even be sports related. Go Niners out here. So as we know, all of these discussions can devolve into heated discussions, maybe a little bit of shouting, maybe a little name calling, which is bad enough during a family gathering, but can really be disastrous in a work setting, even potentially to someone being disciplined or even fired. So is it possible even to allow these types of discussions, political discussions, let's say, within certain boundaries, short of maybe banning them altogether in the workplace? Well, here, once again, we are happy to bring back Lisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy. Lisa is an award-winning speaker who works with organizations to keep their top talent from becoming someone else's top talent. So thanks for joining us once again, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Well, so is it even possible? Can we do that the way I set that up? Is it possible for employees to have the freedom in the workplace to discuss political issues or, their political views or religious views or sports or whatever, without it going so far that it devolves into something negative? I mean, can employers give their employees that opportunity, or is it just opening up a can of worms, and should they just say, no political talk, no hot button issue talk at all?
It's really difficult, particularly during these difficult political times. Let's just start with that one. If you can have a respectful conversation out of curiosity for somebody's viewpoint, what is it that you like about that candidate? What is it that you're in favor of? And come from a place of genuine curiosity. A lot of times we can be okay with that. We can have these discussions. But unfortunately, even when people go in with the best intentions and they ask somebody, so what is it about this candidate that you like? And the person answers you with something so far off that you can't even believe they just said that. You think that you're being respectful, and then you just get sucked into that conversation. When things get heated at work, when it can destroy workplace morale, when it can interfere with the work process itself, then no, these are topics that should be stayed away from at work. If, on the other hand, you can have discussions, because one of the problems about saying that you should never discuss politics or religion is that we don't know how to respectfully discuss politics, religion, and other hot topics. So it really depends on where you're coming from, but as soon as that discussion starts getting heated, it's time to agree to disagree, to walk away, to talk about your vacation or your dog. Something that's much more lighthearted, that's not going to get people's feelings hurt and cause disruption in the workplace and damage relationships, all of which could happen.
Well, what's the employer's duties in this? Do they just keep their ears open and just be aware of what's going on and step in if they think it's going too far? Do they encourage or discourage employee conversations, water cooler conversations, let's say?
Employers can really do whatever it is that they want to do. It's their workplace. When it comes to conversations, political speech is not protected speech. The speech that is protected in the workplace is by the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, which looks at some conversations as protected concerted activity. So if people are talking about their job descriptions, if they're talking about their workplace issues, then that may be protected speech. But when it comes to discussing politics or other hot topics in the workplace, you don't have freedom of speech. The owner of that company, the managers of the company can decide that what can and cannot be discussed. But you also want to have an open conversation where people can discuss things. But again, I'm going to keep coming back to that. It comes from a place of respect. It comes from a place of curiosity. And if it crosses the line, you don't know what damage you can do for yourself in the workplace, and then overall, for the people at work. Because again, you don't know what side of the aisle your boss is on. You don't know where your customers may be if you happen to be talking where they're in earshot of people who are doing business with you. So no matter what side of the aisle you're on, there's 50% of the people that basically disagree with you. So is that a risk that you're really willing to take?
And are there implications, potential, let's say, I was going to say legal, but maybe not legal, but what are the ramifications for employees who step over the line? I mean, can an employer come in and say, I'm sorry, we believe that your latest diatribe was abusive. We believe that you were being verbally abusive to your coworker by whatever. Is that something that can happen?
Absolutely. We look at hostile work environment. It's not necessarily, a lot of times when we think of hostile work environment, we think of sexual harassment, we think of telling off-color jokes or those types of things. But the same thing can be said if you're having speeches around people that are making other people feel uncomfortable. Even if it's you and your buddy and you're talking in the lunchroom and you guys are on the exact same side of the aisle, you believe each other and you're just having a lively conversation, it's not so much that, it's the people that are overhearing that conversation that may feel uncomfortable. And then they may take it to management saying, we need to have more of a neutral zone here. When I'm enjoying my lunch sitting in the lunchroom, I don't want to have to listen to people discussing something that really, makes me feel sick to my stomach. It really unnerves me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So employers do have to keep their ears open. They have to see how people are relating, and definitely different times of year, whether it be a big sporting event, whether it be politics, whether it be something's going on in the world that are just those types of hot buttons. We really want to try to stay away from that, because we just want to have peace. Why can't everybody just get along?
Right. Well, I mean, so this kind of seems like then it might present legal implications for the employer, right? So, I mean, and I know this, we don't want to get too much into the legal realm of it, but we do know, for instance, that, if speech is getting overly sexual by somebody's standards, another person's standards, that obviously they could go to the employer. They can say, well, I feel like I'm being sexually harassed because this person is always talking about this sexual thing or that sexual thing that makes me uncomfortable. I would assume maybe that the same thing might apply even if it's not sexual, even if it's just religious, somebody talking about something religious or something talking about even something political, where if they're going on and maybe I tell them, hey, you're making me uncomfortable, I don't want you to talk about that around me, and they continue doing it. Do you know, I mean, has that ever come up as a means of, I don't know, workplace harassment?
Well, unfortunately, we live kind of in a sue happy society where somebody gets a little bent out of shape and they want to sue the world over it. But when it comes to employers, it's really taking a look at your policies. What do you outline as far as respectful conversation in the workplace? How does that come across? Because if it's not outlined and then a person goes off on one diatribe and you're like, you know what, you're out of here, but you've never given them a warning, you've never given them a chance,
Sure.
you've never had a conversation, you've never asked them, then you might find yourself in some legal problems because that employee is going to say, like, what do you mean I can't talk about it? You never told me that. It's not in our handbook. So taking a look, starting there with what is the policies that you have in place, and when somebody is going over the line, to first of all, to have that conversation. Listen, I know that you are extremely passionate about this particular issue. One of the reasons that we hired you is your passion for our company and for what you do, but unfortunately, this is having a negative effect, and we need to stop this conversation. If the employee then persists in that type of behavior that you've had conversations with, and you've documented, of course, that you've had those conversations, then you're protecting yourself a little bit more legally. But it's everything that we're doing to create that type of workplace of respectful culture, respectful communication, and outlining what does that look like in our workplace.
Okay. Well, I want to kind of turn the corner here a little bit. I know that when you speak, I mean, I've been to some of your meetings, and I know kind of the thing that you talk about is employee appreciation and employee gratification, being happy to be at your job, and an employee that enjoys their work and enjoys being in their workplace is a better employee, a happier employee, more productive employee. So how does that idea, those things that you typically speak on, how does that tie into this whole concept of what we've been talking about here about workplace casual communication?
Well, you can feel culture. That's the thing. You can walk into a bank, you can walk into a store, you can walk into any business, and you can feel that culture. Do employees like working there? Is there a tenseness in the air that you can cut with a knife? We want to build relationships where we know each other, where we like each other, where we trust each other, and that people feel appreciated. That if I have a differing opinion than you, we can agree to disagree, but we can still work together in harmony. I want to catch you in the act of doing things well. But let's go back to a person that I'm working with or that reports to me that has a different completely different political standing than I do. I have the tendency, maybe I look at that person differently. Maybe I don't have as much respect for that person. Maybe there's a promotion coming up. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go there. So we can have these discussions. I kind of feel like I'm talking in circles, but it really comes back to that respectful conversation and knowing that anytime you take on a hot topic, a high risk topic at work, you are putting yourself at risk. And if you're okay with that potential risk, you go on Facebook and you have some kind of social media rant. Well, my boss can't fire me for that, because it was just what I feel, and I'm allowed to post that. But yeah, but now you may have a different relationship with that boss who doesn't feel the same way, or a different relationship with your coworkers. You may be being blocked more often. Who knows? Yeah. But it's just a risky business unless you are willing to come from it again from that point of genuine curiosity and being okay with whatever that person says because you really want to know.
Yeah. So it's kind of just kind of synopsis, I think, of what you've said is just as employers have to have respect for their employees and their views and what they offer to the to the workplace, employees have to have that with each other. I mean, you know, as an employee, I have to have respect for my coworkers' views. Even if I don't agree with them, I have to respect that they have their own views, and they're coming from they're coming from a place that they may actually be coming from the same place that I am in terms of what are our desires. You know, we're all part of this country. We all kind of want the same thing. We want to put food on the table. We want our kids to have a good education. We want them to grow up happy. We probably all want that same thing. We may have different views on how to get there, and I think we have to maybe understand that the other person, their idea of how to get there may be radically different from ours, but where they want to head to is the same, and kind of understand that.
Yeah, and no matter what your beliefs are, there is no way that in a 5, 10, or even a 30-minute conversation, you are going to change that person's belief system. It's not going to happen. So if you have that annoying coworker that is trying to shove their thoughts down your throat all the time, telling you you're an idiot because you believe the way that you believe and that's not the right way, we have to also take responsibility for ourselves to say, you know what, I'm not discussing politics at work. How was your vacation? How's your dog doing? Right. And changing the conversation to say, you know what, we're going to have to agree to disagree. We have a good working relationship. I'd really like to keep it that way. So let's just, you know, we can talk about anything else, but when it comes to politics, when it comes to religion, whatever hot topic it is, let's just, for the sake of it, let's stay away from that.
All right. Perfect. Well, we'll end with that. Wlisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy. Thanks for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
All right. And don't forget, we'll plug it again at the end of the show, but there's a great little book that Wlisa has out, Manufacturing Engagement, 98 Proven Strategies to Attract and Retain Your Industry's Top Talent. There's a link underneath the player page down there. You can click that and download a PDF of the book. It's great. It's just 98 simple ideas that almost any company can do to show appreciation and to elicit a response from your employees on being more participative in the workplace. All right, Wlisa, thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
All right, and now we're going to turn to today's Tech Corner, brought to you by QMark, manufacturers styli and accessories for the metrology and machine tool industries. QMark, whose motto is same-day styli. What we're going to look at today is how to select a stylus for your probe or your CMM or portable arm or whatever if you aren't quite sure what you have. What happens if you need to replace an unknown stylus because it's worn or it's broken? Well, the folks at QMark have provided us with some helpful tips for selecting a replacement stylus. And the first thing to do is to find the thread size. So look at the probe head or the sensor on your CMM, see what make or model it is, and then go to QMark's website, cmms.com. That's cmms.com. And I have a link to the page below, but we can see it here. And you can look up the type of probe that you have. We can see there's Renishaw there and Zeiss, and there's some other probes. And you can see if you can find your probe on there, your probe model on there. And if you do, well, then you have the thread size right there, and that kind of gets you through the first part of this. If you can't find it on there, and if we can go to the gauge cam here, you can use something like a thread gauge. This thread gauge comes from QMark, and I've included a link to the purchase page for this on their website as well. But you can just use a thread gauge, get it so the camera can see it, and you can find out what thread size you have that will work. And I can see here that this fits in the M5. So this is a 5mm thread, and M5 is what that would be, and I can tell using the thread gauge there. You could also take a micrometer and just measure the thread with a micrometer. So if it measures about 5 millimeters in diameter, that'd be an M5. If it was 3 millimeters in diameter, it'd be an M3. So you can get it that way. In fact, while I'm here, using the same thread card, I could also measure the ball size. So I can just keep putting this in until, okay, so that's too small, that's too big, that one's just right. So I also know, using the same gauge, I can tell that this is a 3mm ball. So in this case, I've got a 5mm thread and a 3mm ball. If you can't do any of the above, take a picture of the head. The salespeople at QMark have sold hundreds of thousands. In fact, I believe they sold between 500,000 and 1 million styli. So they really know, they've seen pretty much every sensor, every head that's out there. So if you send them a picture of your probe head, so even if you don't even know the model, they should be able to figure out what it is, and they can figure out what thread size and other characteristics go along with that probe head that you have, or with that sensor that you have. So the other question is, how is the probe going to, how is it going to be used? You know, what ball size do you need? What shaft length do you need? What material do you need? There's a lot of different materials that styli can be made out of. So for instance, this one happens to be carbide. So you might choose carbide if you need a really rigid material. Carbide is typically used for that. If you need something lightweight, you might want to use carbon fiber or ceramic. This happens to be a ceramic one. Thermal stability, if that's important, you might use titanium or carbon fiber. And a lot of machinists, a lot of machine tool people go with ceramic stems like this one. And the reason is because it's brittle. So if you can imagine on a machine tool, if you're using this probe and you crash it into a part or a fixture, you would rather break an inexpensive stylus rather than break an expensive probe head. So you can think of this as a fuse that protects the probe head. So a lot of machine tool people will go with a ceramic stem. So think about those things for your application. You don't need just to blindly do a one-to-one replacement. So wrapping up, if you need to replace one of your stylus, the easiest thing to do before contacting QMark is to identify the probe head the stylus goes into, if you can, take a picture, the thread diameter of the stylus, ball size, and the stem length. And then give some thought about how this is being used. It may make sense to actually replace your old probe with a different type or different material probe that might be more suited to your work. Then armed with that info, give QMark a call or visit their website. Remember, that's cmms.com, cmms.com. And by the way, if you know exactly what you want for a custom stylus, you should try out their Design Your Own Stylus app on their website. There's a link to that on the player page, as well as a link to a demo of the design tool that we did a while back. So I'd like to thank the folks at QMark for sending us these suggestions. QMark, whose motto is Same Day Styli, is an ISO 9001 registered company that manufactures styli and accessories for the metrology and machine tool industries right here in the USA. Thanks, guys. And that is our show for today. Thanks again to wLisa Ryan for joining us. There is a link to her book, Manufacturing Engagement, 98 Proven Strategies to Attract and Retain Your Industry's Top Talent, down below. Just click that to download the free PDF. As the title says, there are 98 great ideas on how to show appreciation to your employees. And as usual, if there is someone you would like us to bring on the show or some topic you would like us to cover, just send those ideas to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we'll try to get those onto the show. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining us. We will see you at the next QDL. So long.